Test. Having some technical difficulties, so please stand by. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Irrigation Industry Professional Session. My name's Jeff Pearson. If you don't already know me, I'm the Utilities Director here for the City of Cape Coral. And I just want to thank you all for coming this morning. We're going to discuss the recent ordinance passed by City Council. It's Ordinance 29-24. I'm going to briefly talk about some of the things that why Council had to do this, and we're going to talk about smart soil sensors and smart controllers, and some of the reasons driving why we needed to do this for the Northeast area, Cape Coral. It'll begin, the ordinance was originally, just to give you a little background, we started on this probably back in about 2016 or 2017. We had a group of industry professionals, including members from the CCCIA with us, and we came up with an ordinance. Over a number of years we were working on it because irrigation is the largest use of water really in America, all over. Some people estimate it to be, it could be as high as 70 to 75% of all the water use that people use in their homes and businesses nationwide. So it's an area that really hadn't been really looked into, and for a long time it's kind of been ignored. So we dug in and we looked at it, and we came up with an ordinance because the cheapest form of new water supply is through conservation. And when the city conducted a irrigation study back in about 2011 is when it was finalized, the number one thing that we had on that list was conservation. And because one of the ways that we keep our rates affordable is to, adequately and efficiently use the resources that we already have. So I'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. As I was saying, according to the EPA, as much as 50% of all the water used for irrigation is wasted due to evaporation, wind, or runoff caused by inefficient irrigation methods and systems. And also, according to the Alliance for Water Efficiency's Outdoor Water Savings Research Program, per capita indoor water use continues to decline across the United States. However, outdoor irrigation remains the largest end use of water, and this will be the focus of urban water efficiency programs in the coming years. A study published by Irrigation and Green Industry states that use of smart controllers cut water use by at least 30% and possibly as high as 70%. This is just a graph that Water Science Associates, a gentleman named Kirk Martin, who is very knowledgeable about groundwater. He's actually a professional geologist. He did a study for a CDD area, and the blue line on this graph represents homes without a soil moisture sensor, and the red line was homes with the soil moisture sensor. And actually they found there was a 31% reduction just with the use of soil moisture sensors in his study. This is a graph showing a 29% reduction. The blue bar is for using a smart controller, and the red bar was just using a conventional irrigation, like a standard clock timer. Back in November of 2023, the South Florida Water Management District issued a water shortage order for the Mid-Hawthorne Aquifer in the northeast part of Cape Coral. And also, this is the area that Ordinance 29-24 covers. This area, if you see that dot in the middle, it's kind of hard to see on that slide, but that's the USGS well that's registering very low levels. Here's a graph that the South Florida Water Management District provides to the city weekly. We are monitoring it as well as the Water Management District. The USGS well is called L4820 in the Mid-Hawthorne Aquifer. And as you can see, last year we had a very unusual rainy season. It was a very dry rainy season. And now this year we're having a very wet, dry season. So it's almost like it's flipped. And that's what's causing some issues, because normally the aquifer will recover. That green line represents the MDL, or minimum developable limit, which once you drop below that green line, the Water Management District gets real concerned, because that's their line, their self-imposed line, saying that you drop below that, well, now you got too many wells in that aquifer. The red line at the bottom, that's at 101.83 feet below land surface, is called the MFL. That's the line we don't want to get to, that red one. If you drop below that MFL, you're at the top of the aquifer, and what can happen is that that aquifer can actually collapse, and now you've destroyed that aquifer, and no more wells can go in it. So we don't ever want to get there, but unfortunately, if we don't do something, we're going to get there. So that's why City Council, I had brought Council a menu of options that they could consider fairly recently, just a few months ago, and Council decided to accelerate the ordinance that we had adopted back in 2023, I believe it was June of 23, and that's not supposed to go into effect until December 1 of 2024. This ordinance that will begin June 1st is the same ordinance, with the exception of just a few minor changes. We changed the verbiage of the utility director being in charge of any changes to the DSD director, Department of Community Development, or Development Services Department, sorry. And we also, we just made a few housekeeping items. And also one of the items that Council decided to do was raise the fines for second, third, and fourth offenses. The second offense went from $100 to a $200 fine. Third offense went from $200 to $350 fine. And the fourth offense, within a 12-month period, all of these, became a $500 fine. So those are really just the highlights of just the housekeeping items that we changed in the original ordinance, which is Ordinance 46-23 back in June of 2023, that goes into effect December 1 for the entire city. So I just wanted to make that clear. This graph is very interesting. This is a 20-year look back of that well, and you can see how it slowly, it goes up and down it goes up in the rainy season, goes down in the dry season, and it's right now, as of last Friday, it reached a record low, a new record, which is not good, because April is historically the driest month of the year here in Southwest Florida. So we knew it was going to start going back down a little bit. I'll take questions in a minute. Thank you, sir. So we knew it was going to start going down a little bit. I didn't realize we were going to break the record. So hopefully the rainy season will start soon, and we'll start seeing an uptick and get back above that green line, which we really don't want to be below that green line. This is also a slide from the South Florida Water Management District. Right now, this area is under 1 day a week watering restrictions. And if you are on a well in this area, you have to be on 1 day a week. If you are on city utilities or reuse system, you stay on your regular 2 day a week watering schedule. So it does not impact properties that are on the city system, that are in probably this would be areas like Entrada and things like that, or any parts of the North 2 area. We are currently, as I was saying, we have North 1 UEP under construction, which if you drew a circle around that well, the North 1 UEP covers about 2/3 of the area around it. So we're happy about that, because hopefully we're going to start seeing this well, those graphs that I just showed you, start to go up. Because south of Pine Island Road, it was doing the same thing a number of years ago. We saw the same things because there's USGS groundwater monitoring wells there as well. And after we got everyone on the city system, we started seeing the aquifers start to recover, because all those private wells were no longer being used for outdoor irrigation, which is a very good thing. This is currently our year-round watering schedule. It's kind of a creative way of showing it. The star is for 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. The half moon sign on the left side of that exhibit is for midnight to 4 a.m. if your house ends with any of those numbers, your house number. And then the sun graphic is from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Well, let's talk about soil sensors. WaterSense labeled irrigation controllers, and I know a lot of you people already know this, but we're going to go over it anyway, can reduce water waste while keeping landscape healthy. Soil moisture-based sensors and irrigation controllers are one option to help homeowners and businesses to achieve water-efficient irrigation scheduling. Because, of course, they detect the amount of soil, moisture in the soil beneath the landscape, and they can override your scheduled irrigation controller when the plants don't need the water, and that helps to reduce water waste and promote healthy plants and yards. And also, I found that WaterSense labeled moisture sensors alone can help save an average home approximately 15,000 gallons of water a year, and I think that's a low number, because a lot of areas this is based on is not Southwest Florida. So it's probably, it could be 3 or 4 times that amount, because a lot of people don't water during the winter in other areas of the United States. Also, continuing on with the soil sensors, the WaterSense labeled soil moisture-based sensors are independently certified to meet criteria related to key performance attributes. They are function, precision, response to change in soil moisture, function following freeze conditions, which we don't have that very often, but it can happen, because I remember when I was in Northport, my water froze. It was back in about 2007 or 8. We had a bad freeze, and I had to actually go out there and pour hot water. I had to use bottled water, put it in a pot, heat it up on the stove, and then throw it on my backflow preventer, and it started working, and I could take a shower and go to work that morning. So I know it can happen, but it's very rare. Also, one of the performance attributes is supplemental capability requirements, which ensures the presence of additional features. Basically, it's the ability to accommodate watering restrictions, which ensures greater long-term water savings. Now we're going to talk about weather-based smart controllers that are WaterSense certified. They use local weather data to estimate landscape conditions and also determine if an irrigation cycle should be allowed or skipped, which is really good. One weather-based irrigation controller can store information on multiple irrigation zones. And to qualify for the city's variance or the $500 rebate, which was also adopted in that ordinance 29-24, must use both weather-based and soil moisture sensor technology that are WaterSense certified. And did you know that if every home in the U.S. had an automatic sprinkler system installed and operated with a WaterSense labeled controller, we could save $4.5 billion in water costs and 390 billion gallons of water across the country annually from not overwatering lawns and landscapes. That's equal to the annual water needs of approximately 5 million average American homes. Just a lot. So now, happy to take any questions. I believe you're first, sir, and go ahead. Thank you. That I don't know, but I could find out. We don't have all the data. Okay, great. Well, I can give you a preview of something the city's going to be heading towards, because we're in negotiations with the county, Lee County. They have a very comprehensive well inspection program and permitting. We are finalizing a interlocal agreement with them, and they are going to take over the well drilling inspections and permitting for the city. Right, which is not a good thing. Right. And those guys over there, they've been doing it a very long time. They're well versed in what needs to be looked at when they're inspecting those wells. So we're really excited about that. We think it's going to make a difference with, you know, we've heard in the news some wells going dry here and there. So we think in the future that that's going to help that situation. Are you talking about Hudson Creek or? Hudson Creek is actually building the infrastructure to get the water and wastewater up Burnt Store Road. That's not a city project. That's a developer-driven project. So any areas off on the east and west side of Burnt Store Road will actually, if there's a commercial development that wants to come in and tie onto that line, will have adequate capacity, and it will also in the future become a backbone transmission main for the Burnt Store Road corridor. But I can tell you right now, we're going as fast as we can with the utilities expansion program. Honestly, I don't know how we could go any quicker because there wouldn't be enough contractors out there. Yes, sir.
That water line that we recently completed, how many gallons a day has that been helping us for our irrigation needs? And that water line, is that also going to be accessible by Charlotte County? I just think I heard you say it'll be accessible by Charlotte County residents also as they develop Burnt Store Corridor?
No, actually, well, as an emergency, only the drinking water line. You bring up a good point. I think, are you talking about the Caloosahatchee Connect project?
No, we're talking about the pipeline that was recently completed.
For the Myriad motor coach?
I'm talking about the fact that Charlotte County Water was giving us, Charlotte County was giving us water from the preserve.
Oh, no, that's actually not the county. That's a private landowner. Southwest Aggregates, the reservoir? The
Line that came down Burnt Store, I was under the assumption that was feeding into our canals.
No, no, sir. That line was paid for by the developers of the Myriad Motor Coach Resort.
Okay.
And that's right now, that's all it serves. When the developers for Hudson Creek construct, it's actually under design, they're surveying it now. Once those lines get put in, we're going to tie that motor coach resort onto those lines that they tied into Charlotte County's Burnt Store water and wastewater plant. You know, it's just north of the county line on the east side of Burnt Store Road, just a few blocks. Those plants are what they're tied into right now, and we don't, the rest of our customers system is not tied in yet. But we will eventually be tied in with that Hudson Creek line once it's constructed. And then we'll have an emergency interconnect, and if their plant gets hit, we'll be able to send them water under an emergency basis, or we send them water if, you know, vice versa, depending on who has water during an emergency or a natural disaster. Now, the Caloosahatchee Connect project, I'd like to mention that, which was completely completed in January. Right now, we're receiving between 6 and 8 million gallons a day from Fort Myers South Plant, which is actually helping with the withdrawals out of the canals. So instead of drawing that same amount of water out of the canals, it's actually coming over and they're not discharging it into the river. And we're reducing nutrient loading on the river by over 50 tons of nitrogen and phosphorus a year now from that one project, to which we received over $12 million in grant funding from the state. And they love the project, by the way, because it's just a really good project. It's a regional project that really helps the whole area and the environment. Any more questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
By mandating the water sense systems, the weather-based stuff, is the city receiving any rebates from manufacturers of that equipment?
No, no, that would be on the contractor putting it in. Now, the contractors might, but, and also I might want to add that rebate is not going to the contractor, it's going to the property owner, because they should be getting, you know, because they're going to end up paying more for the house, so they should be getting the rebate. And also the areas that, like if you go in and retro your system and qualify for the rebate, it has to be a retrofit of $2,500 or more. and you have to put in the smart controller and the soil sensors and meet the minimum 70% efficiency on that new, upgraded system for existing customers that want to participate. Yes, sir.
In that case, at least for the sensor, you can use the rain sensor plus, but the sensor in the ground normally works for each zone, and then here, you know that they build the zone that controls everything. Grass, plant, shrubs, and then that way, if you use the sensor in the ground, something is gonna be out of water. But not every, or the grass, or the shrub, or plants, they don't use the same amount of water. And then if you put it on, you will be putting water in the shrub, for example, or you could be killing the grass, not putting enough water, at least with that sensor.
Yeah, I think that would come down to how it was configured.
But
I-
that's something that the inspectors, they have to check it. So today's day, you go to the new houses they are building, 3 zones. 3 zones. That's why everybody's using the 4 hours. And that's the bad thing too. You don't need 4 hours to irrigate. 1 hour to irrigate 1 zone. You only need 1 inch of water. That is 20, 36, 27 minutes, depending what kind you got.
You only really need about an inch of water a week for an area, depending on the type of landscaping. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, we got these monitor wells everywhere. At what level do they hit that you stop issuing irrigation permits or well permits, or does that not exist?
That I can't tell you that. That would be a decision for the Water Management District. They would take into consideration what the levels are in the USGS monitoring wells, and then that would be, probably a governing board decision of the Water Management District to go that far. They have mentioned to me several things that they were considering. One was you can have a well, but you can't water your grass with that well. And you got to drill another well to water your grass, which I thought wasn't a good idea. It didn't really make sense to me. So, and I told them that. They could, if it drops past that MFL, that red line, they could essentially say no more wells, which means a moratorium, no more houses. Because if you don't have water, you don't have a house. So we are doing everything, as a city, we are doing everything we can possibly do to prevent that from happening. And we're moving as quickly as we can with construction of putting in lines in the ground. But it's impossible to go in to the entire north of Pine Island Road and come in and put in utilities even within a couple of years. I mean, we're looking at, 20 to 25, and maybe even 30 years before the entire city is on our drinking water. So it's a ways out. Could the council say, we're going to just go in and put in water? The problem with that is if we do that, we're going to tear everything up, and then a few years later, we're going to have to go back and tear it up again and put in more lines, sewer lines, irrigation lines. So that's not a good option either, but we're looking at everything. And like I said, conservation is the key. That's the one that we're focusing in on right now. And this ordinance is hopefully going to get us there, and we're going to get lines in that area. We're even looking at potentially skipping, because right now the UEP is like 1 through 12 in the north part of the city. It's broken up into 12 areas, zones. We've already finished North 2. We skipped North 1, went to 2 because it's closer to the coast. and the environmental benefits were there to get rid of all those septic tanks. Because when we do this, we're also eliminating all the septic tanks, which is also a problem environmentally, from an environmental perspective, because that waste can get into the canals, it can get into the, the Gulf eventually. So we skipped one, went to two, now we're at one. We're currently going to be designing North 3, which is above North 2 on the northwest part of Cape Coral. But, it'd be a council decision if they want us to stop, don't go to 3 and go to 6. UEP 6 is directly above North 1, which then you've got that USGS well completely surrounded, and it's going to start to recover. So that's something that we're going to have to talk to council with, and and it could happen because we've done it before. We skipped 1 and went to 2, and then went back to 1. So it's certainly an option. Yes, sir.
Since we went to the extra time slot of watering, could you tell me what our average water consumption is on a daily basis for the reused water lines?
The average, Scott, the year, annual average day flow is around 32 to 36 million gallons a day.
Since we added the extra time period?
Well, that really didn't change the flow. All that did was we used something called demand management in our industry. What demand management does, instead of doing an even odd schedule where half your customers are all watering the same day, the next day the other half of your customers are all watering. What was happening with our old schedule was we didn't have enough time slots. You want to spread that demand over a longer period of time and more days. And what that did, and we're already seeing the positive impacts from that, is we're able to keep our pressures higher, which prevents illegal watering, because people are not going to illegal water because they got good enough pressure when it is their time slot.
We did add an extra day, though.
Yes, sir. Tuesdays used to be a non-watering day. What we did was we used to only have 2 watering time slots per day, and Tuesdays were a no watering time slot. What we did was we made Tuesday a watering day, and we added an extra time slot, which is 8 p.m. to midnight, and that extra time slot gave us more flexibility, and now we're seeing a more static pressure gradient on our system because we're not getting hammered with a whole lot of flow and pumping capability all at once, and then it just drops our system pressure.
So are you saying that because the pressure is up now, which I've noticed considerably, by the way,
Thank you.
that we're not hitting that 50 million gallon a day that we hit before?
We're only hitting the 50 million. We are hitting the 50 million gallon a day right now because it's very dry out and we have a lot of illegal watering going on. If we didn't have all the illegal watering going on, we should be in the 30s.
Okay.
MGD range. So code enforcement's out. I believe this past week they wrote in excess of 300 citations, which we've been reporting to the Water Management District as well, because that shows that we mean business, that we're not, not doing our job, which is trying everything we can possibly do to prevent the district from issuing a moratorium, which we do not want to happen, and to protect the aquifer and the environment. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, I understand about all the water shortage and everything else, but us as contractors, irrigation contractors, we need to know what's gonna change with permitting, design systems, we need to that's what we're here, I thought we were here for, you know.
It's a great segue.
Water shortage and everything, but we need to know, when we go to pull a permit, what are we doing? And when we're installing a sprinkler, do we have to use different heads, everything, so. I
Great.
think that's what a lot of these guys wanna know.
Yes, sir. He's up next. I'm going to hand the microphone to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Shane Kittendorf, building official. My responsibility is the regulation of the construction industry and as it relates to the irrigation systems. As Jeff alluded to, everything was been worked over years, and here we are today. The adoption shouldn't have been until December. It is now in June. That's coming to fruition. In lieu of you just coming in, submitting an application, getting approved and going out doing work, you're now going to be required to submit drawings that provides detailed information. And I'm just going to read directly from Article 19-90.2, which talks about design drawings, and then we can talk about further that information from that. So what it says is that the design drawings shall be provided for the installation of irrigation systems prior to the start of construction of the irrigation system. Design drawings shall be prepared by the licensed professional engineer, licensed plumbing or irrigation contractor, or licensed landscape architect. The design drawings for single-family homes may be neatly hand-drawn and to scale. A design drawing shall be required for irrigation systems installed on non-residential, multifamily, residential, and residential developments or buildings and shall contain the following information. A, location, type, and size of the components including sprinklers, micro-irrigation, main and lateral piping, master valves, moisture sensors, rain sensors, controllers, pump start relays, backflow prevention devices, pumps, wells, etc. B, the flow rate, application rate includes per hour the manufacturer specifications for operating pressures for the sprinklers and micro-irrigation within each zone. C, the name, address, phone, email, professional license, certification number of the installation contractor and the date of installation. And D, design drawings of non-residential and multifamily residential buildings shall also include pump station size, pump station location, design operating pressure per manufacturer specifications, and flow rate per zone, precipitation rate per zone, locations of pipe controllers, valves, sprinklers, sleeves, gate valves, sensors, etc. That was a quick, high-level requirement across the board built in the ordinance. As a reference, Appendix F in the building code, plumbing code, will provide you a more in-depth guideline that you can utilize to assist you with the development of your system. So I would implore you to look at that, go through that exercise, look at that information, because that's what we're going to go by as we're performing plan reviews to make sure that we have that uniformity and consistency across the board with that. As it relates to inspections, I believe our inspections are going to be 2 inspections. One at rough before concealing all the pipes. There will be a pressure test on that system, and then the second will be the final, making sure that the system is operating and having the proper coverage across the board.
You're gonna have 2 inspections, and you're gonna have to leave it open until it gets inspected?
Yes, sir.
Leave it open all the time.
That's ridiculous.
Well, again, I'm only going by with that, so,
Yeah, but
yeah.
more information, you have to leave everything open, or that's a risk, somebody getting, walking in and then.
Liability.
Yeah, it's all insurance.
And I will touch on that in a second, but during construction, there are the requirements that it's like a, let me clarify that real quick.
Contractors are
Well,
already working around other people, you know.
granted, but if I can touch on that, you have a job site and you have the slab going in, right? That slab has all types of rebar stuff popped up all over the place. It has wire usually mesh in the slab unless you're using a fiber mesh system. Are you saying that we should put up a fence around that? Or people have acknowledgement it's a construction site? I'm just putting that out there just to have that clarity. Everybody has to have a situational awareness of them if they're walking onto a job site. All contractors on a job site, you shouldn't be allowing any person from the public walking onto the job site. They should have an awareness that happening. So I'm just putting that out there. There are ways to look at that.
Saying, people, we're working in a house where there's kids, there are people living in the house, it's not a open construction, like, you know? There were-
So existing homes, you're doing an irrigation system, opening it up. Let's talk about 10-foot runs of pipe. We're not saying that all has to be open right there. The point where you want to make sure that is available is connection points, junctions, making sure that those are quickly when you schedule your inspections, that they're able to see that and that you can see the pressure testing and if there's any leaking that's happening, just for a quick.
System, then why would you need to do that?
I'm
If the
sorry.
system's pressurized and you're backfilling the things as you go, if it's pressurized and the pressure hasn't dropped, you know.
And we can look at that. Again, this has just been thrown at the front and says, deal with it, and I'm just reading from Appendix F, and I can touch on that and see how we can make adjustments. Again, we'll go through the,
I brought it up. I mean, it just
Agreed.
doesn't, I mean,
The schedule.
it's what we do with a lot of the plumbing in the house.
Yeah,
What would be the
like an
difference?
inspector's.
I did, the problem with leaving open ditches is we already have a problem with sewer and water, where they can't get out there fast enough, they're not accepting pictures. So what ends up happening, we have 4 and 5 re-inspections, because that's been open during rainy season and it all caves in. So especially in the old neighborhoods, where we're digging down really deep. So you're adding another process to this that is very problematic. So my point is, let's come up with before we jump into this new system, which has been, what, 3 years in the makings, 4 years in the makings?
if I may, don't shoot the messenger.
No.
This has been 4 years in the making, and I'm being told, make it happen. So, in photographs with regards to an irrigation system isn't an issue. I'll be more than happy to utilize. We are talking piping in the ground. We are talking pressure testing that has to be looked at. So it's not something that's out of the question that I would say, no, we're not going to do something. One of the big things is reclaim waters. We want to make sure we have purple pipe in the ground, and that has been one of the challenges that I've seen where they're not utilizing purple pipe. My inspectors go out there, they go to do the inspection, they say they have white pipe in the ground. That's the difference of potable water versus non-potable water reclaim system. And the guys are coming going, what do we do? Well, at a quick understanding, instead of tearing all the pipe out, I'm just requesting right now, open up the pipe, paint the crap out of the pipe purple, and then put it back. At least there's something to work with to try to help. At the end of the day, I would prefer the purple pipe. It's critical that we catch it in advance and we're not coming after the fact and the plumbing contractor, because he didn't have it on his truck, put the white pipe and telling our guys to accept it. And that's what we get historically.
Jay, if I may, and for you guys that don't know, we were part of the committee that worked with the city to go over this ordinance. The CCCIA, the Cape Coral Construction Industry Association, did support the ordinance in its final version. We worked on this for 2 years. We recognized the need for water conservation. So we're with Jeff 100% on this. Part of our discussions during this committee, we did not, and for clarity, I want to be very specific on this, we did not adopt Appendix F. If you notice the language in the ordinance, we refer to Appendix F. One of the reasons we were so vehemently against adopting Appendix F, one of the very many reasons, was the inspection process. Open trench inspections, when we discussed this at our committee, we were against open trench inspections because of the reasons that all these guys just mentioned. So there is no need. This is based on what you want to happen. Appendix F is not adopted, so there's no need for these open trench inspections. That was discussed ad nauseum. Not only if you do adopt Appendix F, there's a number of other requirements that they want. Fortunately, all you're looking at is open trench inspections. But again, I want to stress the fact that was discussed ad nauseum. We do not want or cannot have open trench inspections. We could go back to the council member, to Jeff, everybody was, I know you've been thrown in on this at the last minute, but that's a huge issue for all of the contractors here.
I'll look into it, Ed.
Okay.
Not a problem.
No, but here we are at the last hour. June 1st is when, and fortunately it's a small geographic area, but we're gonna model the rest of the city based on what we do. In December, we're gonna model it based on what we do now. So we need to get it right now.
And we will be putting this together, and I'll make sure that the CCCI has a breakdown of the information in advance, that we have that uniformity, coordination, that when we put it out, how we're following those processes. Again, as this was thrown to me, looking at the information, reading in Appendix F as a reference material, this is what it's telling me to go by. So I'm using it as a guide, as which was put in a reference. So I'm looking at it going, okay, let's reference this. Let's look at the information. Let's utilize this as our resource to assist with compliance. That being said, let's discuss it further. I can make sure when we put this together in writing on how we're following this policy is that we're uniform in the process.
And if I could address the submittals real quick, because, I mean, these guys are going to be applying for permits now, and so they at least need to know, how, okay, what are we going to do on a permit package? So what was discussed in that meeting, and most of what is affected now is new construction, let's face it. Some of the retrofits, yes. It was discussed, all of your builders will have a survey. By the time you get to your irrigation, all your builders are gonna have a site plan. And it was discussed that we can use that final survey. The irrigation contractors could handwrite where all the equipment is going, and that would be allowed for submittal. Are you in agreement with that?
Oh, I'm not against it. Just make sure that if you're hand drawing on a design professional's document, that you get clarity. I just had a recent case with a surveyor. A individual hand drew on his drawing. The surveyor got awareness of it and just came into the city full force into the wall saying, hey, why are you allowing this? This is my drawing. Why did you allow this? My drawings are copyrighted. He's not allowed to do it. So I'm just giving you what we on our side are having to contend with right now. So I don't have an issue of taking the site plan. Again, as long as there's a letterhead that's not there that's showing that design professional. Again, design professional, if they put their information on there, it has to be signed and sealed by that design professional. And that's what we have to have. Again, a site plan. If you're utilizing any professional as a plumbing contractor or irrigation contractor can draw, just make sure you don't have the design professional's information. Take the set of plans, utilize the resources of it so you can perform the schematics accordingly. I'm just giving you that information just recently. This is as of what, last week, was it, Becky, that we just got hit with this? So I just want to make sure we have that awareness of what's happening right now. Sir.
First of all, this wasn't supposed to roll out until December. Second of all, Appendix F is a guideline that we reference. Third, it would help us, and you can't get this overnight, but if we're gonna go and apply for a permit, there is a form that the city can create, not hard to do, so that all that information is very easily looked at, so that whoever's approving these permits can do it in a timely manner. So that has to happen.
That is the goal.
The industry can help with that if they need that. That would be the Florida Irrigation Society. And the last thing is, typically, when we're inspecting depths of pipes and trenches, there's a simple thing as a 2-inch standpipe that stands on top of the pipe, and the inspector goes and looks at it, measures it down there, and says, hey, you're good. There's no reason to have an open trench. There's no reason to have that liability, or for that matter, any washouts or anything that happens to cause the contractor to incur additional expenses while waiting for an inspection. So this is kind of like, hey, this is what's happening and this is where we are now, but there's solutions to everything that's been discussed here. And I think what we need to do is, number one, get in touch with the ad hoc committee, because there's professionals on there that have these answers. And number two, let's not panic. We can do this. You don't need open trenches if you got sight lines. If you want to test a lateral pipe, inspector sticks a shovel in the ground and feels the plastic. There's only 6 inches. If you're looking at main lines in commercial jobs, you get the sight pipes. So I don't think we really have a problem here. We're just jumping the gun on something that was supposed to happen in December.
So if you've already got information that prevents us having to redevelop the wheel, I would be more than happy to take that and we can look at it and see if we can utilize that. That's what I'm saying. If you got it, send it and we'll look at it to see how we can utilize that resource instead of redoing or recreating something that's already in place. Again, depth, based on the information, I don't panic. I do this all day, every day. If we come to the table, I'm going to say this is what it is, and we discuss it out. I talk with the team, what are all possible solutions to it. I'm never a rock and stone, I don't set a defined line. I look at this is what we need. Now, if the code says I shall have something, then I shall have it. But at the end of the day, if there's a way that I can look at gray in this world to try to find a solution to try to help everybody, I will. I look at it. I'm that guy that says, hey, let's find a solution to something versus just setting a stone in place and figure out how to get around it. So,
Shane, if I could refer to how is the city going to determine the 70% efficiency, which is the entire goal, 70%. How is the city going to determine that?
that's a great question. So,
70% efficiency can be done one of two ways. The hard way is to sit there and do a catch can test, which that's not gonna happen, it shouldn't happen. The other way is to take the square footage of green area and take the amount of water that you intend to put on there, multiply it times 1.3, which is the exact formula that the Water Management District figures that out on. And when you have your flow charts coming in on your zones, it tells you how many gallons this is going to use. This is just a math problem, okay?
And Scott, I'm with you. And my statement is more of a rhetorical statement, and the reason I'm bringing it up, it says, on your sheet here, it says, for purposes of determining the 70% efficiency standard, the city building department will require an EPA water sense certified smart controller timer and soil moisture sensors. It was never part of the ordinance.
That's not part of the ordinance, you're right.
Exactly. It was never part of the ordinance to require a soil moisture sensor. The only requirement for the ordinance was to meet the 70% efficiency.
I didn't write this. My responsibility is to enforce the compliance. This is what's in there. Let's talk about it. Let me have Jeff follow up on this topic.
Yeah, Shane wasn't in on those early conversations.
No, understood, but here we are trying to educate us, and, we got to get it right.
Yeah, just for clarification, you can still put in a baseline system without soil moisture sensors or a smart controller and still meet the 70% efficiency based on a mathematical problem. So, as Scott mentioned, so that's not a requirement of every system. However, if you want to qualify for the variance and the $500 rebate, now that's when the soil moisture sensors and smart controllers come into play. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And also, you're right, during our discussions, during our ad hoc meetings, it was clear that you didn't have to do an open trench inspection. This is a program that's being developed. We couldn't put all of that in the ordinance, and we did say, yes, Appendix F would be referenced, which is what Shane was going by, but we wanted that to just say reference because we wanted the flexibility to not box ourselves into Appendix F. Yes, Scott?
You're going to refer to Appendix F multiple times and repeatedly simply because there is no monitoring of gallons on the reused water system. Therefore, Appendix F is to be used as a guideline. If you want to sit there and get a irrigation system approved, the only other way you can do that is through the math, saying that we're going to put X amount of inches down each time, multiply that times 1.3, and you need to come in within that range, and that gives you the 70%. That's just a matter of the people on staff knowing what to look for
Right.
when everything's on the permit. That's why there has to be a form on the permit, so you can go right to the zones and fill out each gallons on each zone based upon a certain runtime, so that that can happen. Otherwise, I don't know how a permit can be approved over how many, a certain amount of time to where they're not all backed up in the system. And so this is what has to happen by June 1st. And we can get all that to you. Now apparently it's quickly. Now we got to do it quickly. We were planning on this for December.
Correct. That's one of the issues, and this is a program in progress. This isn't anything set in stone other than what's written in the ordinance. That is in stone, but how we're going to administer it is something that is going to change, and we're certainly going to. We're in this with you. We're in this with all of you. And we need your help because we're not all city people. Most of us are not irrigation professionals. You know your business better than we do. And we're going to need that knowledge that you have. And I'd be happy. Somebody mentioned setting up another ad hoc meeting. Absolutely, we will before we finalize it. And it may not even be 100% finalized by June 1, but we had to do something and we had to do it quickly. So we had to get that ball rolling in that northeast area. So right now it's just confined to that area, but this is a good thing because now we're going to have extra time to really dig into it even earlier than December 1. So it's actually a really good thing. So we're going to work with you. We're going to hammer out what those requirements are, what those final requirements are, because like I said, this happened very quickly. I came to council because of the district coming to us and saying, look, you know, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it right now. So we had to react in kind and do something ourselves, and this was one of the solutions council selected.
I would almost consider it a pilot program, where you're actually working in this area, in trial and error, we can kind of figure out what works best.
Well, the reason the original ordinance did not come into play until 18 months after it was adopted is for this reason, so we can iron everything out.
Yeah.
And I have been mentioning it to the DSD director, and I have been mentioning it, well, in the past. And I have been talking about it at the Builders Liaisons meetings. Hey guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? And of course, with everything going on, there wasn't an urgency. So now there's an urgency because council has made it urgent. So.
And we apologize, we're a little behind the 8 ball on that, Ed, because of, we had the FEMA issue come up.
Well, even before that.
And
yeah.
like 40 staff, city staff, have been over in the EOC for the past over a month now trying to address that issue, and it has, and that happened right after we adopted this ordinance, or right around the same time. It hit really at a bad time, that whole FEMA issue, the insurance issue, flood insurance. So we're still trying to catch up, and we're going to need you to help us catch up. And like I said, we'll hold another, all of you are invited. We'll hold another ad hoc meeting. I'll send it out, and some of you, I don't have your contact information, but I can certainly give you my contact information if you want to write it down. I don't know, I've got several business cards for those of you who may not have pen and paper. Send me your contact information. I'll make sure you're on the invite list, and we'll go over this with the DSD director and his staff, and we'll hammer that out, hopefully before June 1st. So we're trying to catch up, and we apologize. Yes, sir.
Permitting-wise, with the transition and a new process, what's a reasonable expectation for permit submittal to issuance?
I'll have to have Shane answer that.
How many days? So as my chief, 2 years, yeah. As my chief inspector, Rebecca Swift just mentioned, we're about a 15-day turnaround. So it'll come in, go through the review process with intake team. They're about a 48-hour turnaround at this moment in time. Once it gets released into the plan review process, it would take approximately 15 days. It may be sooner. I'm going to add resources from my third-party sector to assist us with making sure that we're staying on top of this and not allowing this to spend time. So I will utilize the resources that I have available to make sure that we stay on top of these reviews and they don't fall to the wayside.
I'm just throwing that out right now, we're, this June 1st, trying to get the process, everything in place. We have somebody who will review it, we have third-party help who's gonna help. But I don't wanna commit to anything right now and then overshoot it by a lot. We do plan on getting that time.
We'll get a rhythm in place to make sure that these irrigation permits don't hold up. Just because the irrigation's usually at the end of the job, you know, we're getting near that landscaping, the irrigation contractor submits in at the end of the day, you know, the last thing, and then it goes through a process. Now we're 15 days, and then we get our contractor saying, hey, we need a CO on this house yesterday. So it's important that we stay on top of this and we try to make sure that when it comes in, we push it out as quick as possible to make sure we are in compliance.
It would be helpful if there was, for all the irrigation contractors, if there was a format that would be easiest for you guys to review so that you're not seeing 18 different ways of the information
That's what
being
we
presented.
get something out and defined and try to lay everything out so everybody's.
So that's what Scott said, that we'll get the Florida Irrigation Association, Florida Irrigation Association together, and they'll make sure that we can get something to see how we can get a unified process to make sure that we.
By you and see how it flies, and then everybody can look at it. You know, we can do that fairly quick, and, sorry, also, wouldn't be a bad idea to have somebody on staff that knows irrigation, knows what they're looking at.
I do have Joe, who's on our team, who's plumbing mechanical. He has an awareness, so we utilize that. Again, we also have our third-party resources that I'll be reaching out to them and see who their subject matter expert is for their plumbing and irrigation systems. Make sure that if need be, we have them available also to assist. Ma'am.
If a survey site plans become an issue to be used as a drawing for irrigation, can we use like a LIPA aerial view of the property, since LIPA offers like a toolbar where you can draw onto it, like as design?
I'm not seeing that as an issue, but it's clear that we want to make sure we have delineations and zones. Again, we'll utilize the guidelines from the Florida Irrigation Association, also make sure that whatever methodology that we're using is consistent across the board. It doesn't. So irrigation and plumbing contractor can draw their drawings. So whatever that clean, hand-drawn methodology is, we can look at that information. We just need to have that data that's also associated to it. That's a part of it. I'm sorry? You can use a survey. Again, if you're using a design professional survey, you can use a survey, but if you're using his title block and that information, he has to be the one signing and sealing that information to make sure that's an original. It does come in electronic, and we have to look at that third party added. But since we just started getting this pushback from industry, our design professionals out there stating, hey, this guy drew on my drawing. It's what the heck's it called? Copyrighted. So just make sure that we are on the up and up and we don't get put into that middle of that. Sir.
And pulling the permits will be only irrigation guys, or right now like a general contractor that is pulling the permit for irrigation, and then he's hiring people that really
Don't know what they're doing.
don't know what they're doing, and then, well, like I'm saying, I don't do a lot of new installations for that reason. They don't want to pay. I just prefer to upgrade. But when you go to new house, they only got 3 zones, a lot corner with 3 zones. You see like what they do, and then you have to charge the owner of the house to fix all that, add zones to make it right. Even they said, or they don't put heads in the city area, the grass, all the way to the street. The right of way. I do that. When I install, I go all the way to the street. Why? There's still grass there, we have to irrigate that. But who is gonna control that? And in about inspections.
Yeah,
But
'cause
right
aside
now,
from
they go
water-
there, controller, rain sensor, approved.
Yeah, aside from water conservation, you've got
And,
guys who are
how we
installing
gonna
where
fix
you
it?
need a 10 nozzle, people are putting a 15 half just because they think it's gonna cover.
Yeah.
People don't do triangulated systems, people are putting spray heads in the center just to throw water around.
Well, and that's where the plans are going to come into play, and we're requiring that documentation to prevent
Yeah.
that very issue that you have.
Weed out.
Every time I have to go to houses and do a draw and show the clients, you don't got enough.
You missed a spot.
Pat, we have to
Yeah,
pat.
you missed a spot. I'm just kidding.
So you have to do it, and then it's the only way, but now we are charging a new customer that already buy a house of $300,000. Tell them, you have to spend $2,500, let's say.
So-
But this irrigation is new. Who's gonna control that?
So installing any type of system, be it a building contractor, residential contractor, general contractor, they have certain licensure of approvals that allows them to do that. Roofing contractor, the same thing. We get down to irrigation contractors, plumbing contractors. If it's not written in, and I know we're not local level anymore, but everything at the state level, you're required to be a licensed irrigation contractor or plumbing contractor to be able to provide those services. Unless it's clearly written into residential building or general contractor fields that allows you to do irrigation systems, that responsibility falls on plumbing and irrigation contractors, specialty contractors. So that's critical. When that application comes in, we look at that.
I have a question, if I may. We discussed, or one of the CCCI representatives spoke before council urging irrigation permits to be tied to the date of the original plan for the new construction. In other words, some builders have priced their irrigation systems based on traditional systems, and here now we have a new system that is going to be more expensive and not in the builder's budget. So we wanted the new irrigation permits to be tied to the original building permit, that date. Is that the way we're going to practice it?
Tying the new irrigation systems back to the main
So in other words,
permit.
if I have similar to permits submitted under old code or new code, if it was submitted under old code, you're subject to the old code, not the 2023 building code.
Okay.
Kind of the same thing with irrigation. Are we gonna, if that building permit has already been issued, are we going to use the old irrigation standards based on that permit date, or are we gonna be required to use the new irrigation standards?
That's a great question. So at the time of application submittal for the irrigation system is the time of compliance of such. So with the irrigation system being completely separate from the house structure itself, it is its own, it's a sub-permit to the primary work that's happening, but it is its own standalone permit at the end of the day.
Understood. I'm just
I got you.
understood. And I think my last question, whether you're a state certified irrigation contractor or have a local license, either license holder will not have a problem submitting, correct? Since some of these local licenses are still grandfathered in, they're not gonna have a problem submitting a permit, are they?
The local license that are still in play right now, it's in, right now, we're still good until July 2025.
Right.
So if you have a local license, it's considered still an active license until that next date comes to fruition, we deal with that. So I would implore anybody that's a local license, go get registered at the state just to make sure you're getting to those processes, because there's gonna come that time and day that local is gonna be weaned out of the picture. But yes, right now, those are still applicable. Right there. Sir,
What would you be looking for, like somebody adds a pool to a house?
I'm sorry, say again?
If somebody adds a pool to a house, are you looking for the whole system to be brought up to the new specs, or can we just reinstall around the pool?
So I'll touch on that as in when you go into the Florida Building Code existing building, it's called work area compliance. So just simplify it that the area that's being modified and repaired is the part that you have to, versus me telling you, hey, you're putting in a pool, now you have to take the entire irrigation system, bring it fully up. No, the goal is to the areas that are damaged because of the work, it's incidental to the pool, we want to put it back and repair it accordingly without having to reinvent the wheel. Am I going to get all that there? Are we all good? We're on the same page? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
Oh, 2,500, I do. Isn't that what they said in the
Yeah.
ordinance?
Any other questions? I can talk all day. It's Lynn, you got anything? You've been quiet this morning. All right, Scott.
I just want to say the Florida Irrigation Society coincidentally has a meeting scheduled on the 15th. Everything that was said here is going to be hashed out there. And we do have somebody from city staff that's going to be there, by the way. At that point, what we'll do is we'll bring a condensed, the things I told you about, but we're going to bring a condensed group of questions or concerns that we can hash out, and hopefully 2 weeks. We got 2 weeks, but we'll bring you something based upon that meeting. And for anybody that wants to be there, that meeting's at Mission Barbecue on Cleveland Avenue, right by Bell Tower, Wednesday at 6 p.m. And based upon this meeting, because I wasn't really sure what this was going to be, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So if anybody wants to be there, that's when we're discussing it.
So if you come with questions, come with the solutions or possible solutions that we can discuss those opportunities. Excellent. Right there.
All right. If you'd like, I'll go ahead and give you my email address, and if you send me your contact information, I'll make sure you get on the invite list. My email is jpearson@capecoral.gov. That's jpearson@capecoral.gov. So if you'd like to come to that ad hoc meeting where we can discuss this in greater detail on what's going to be required, we'd be happy if you could attend. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming. Apologize, we're running a little over here. But again, it's a work in progress, and we need your expertise to help us get to the finish line. And we'll get there, and I'm sure that everyone, will be happy with the end product and what's required. So anyway, thank you. Have a great day. Yes?
When does this video become available?
That I do not know. Our communications person here, but I can ask the people behind the wall there in the back, and I can let you know. Usually they post it within a day, so it might be on there by tomorrow, but I'll make sure, I'll check on that and let you know. Thank you all. Have a great day. Have a good weekend as well.